I spit on your podcast.
Long Island, New York, 10 p.m., 1993.
Good night, my little Pam. Sleep well.
I need a glass of water.
You've had 3 glasses of water tonight, and they're all full and in different locations in this room. It's time for bed.
Okay. Love you, Dad.
Love you too, Pam.
Dad?
Did you ever hear a dream walking? Well, I did.
Who's there?
New Jersey, 11 p.m., 1995.
Good night, Daniel. I love you very, very much.
Night, Mom. Could you read me a story?
You're in 5th grade. Go to bed.
Okay. Good night.
Night, Daniel.
Is someone there?
Ashland, Oregon, 10:30 p.m., 2001.
Good night, Em.
Night, Dad. Love you.
Good night, Amanda. Good night, Catherine. Good night, Ryan.
Night.
Good night,
Good night,
Dad.
Hey, did you guys leave the window open?
Go to sleep, Em. Oh my God.
Did you guys hear that? Did you ever hear a dream walking? Well, I did.
No!
Welcome to I Spit on Your podcast with Pam.
Dan.
And M.
A sigh of relief.
So satisfactory. Thank you so much for joining us for our 3rd episode of season 3.
Welcome back.
Today we are going to discuss movies that scared us as children, and specifically us, myself, Dan, and Em. So Dan, what movies are we talking about?
So the movie that scared me as a child was Witchboard.
Witchboard. Witchboard. What can one say about Witchboard?
Brings to mind so much.
So much. So give us some facts about the movie. The actress, the redhead.
Tawny Katane, I will
Yeah.
tell you, is just magnificent to watch. I love her so much in this movie.
Now this was 86?
86, and then it got wide release in 87.
Right.
Her costumes are on point. Pretty much everything about
robe.
Tawny Katane. Yeah,
The robe budget for this movie was...
pink robes for days.
I liked her robe.
Yeah,
They were so
Love
dramatic.
her.
I
I know, I
loved
love it.
It was always like a shot from behind with the robe flowing.
Yes.
And her running to the, what is it, Ouija?
It's pronounced
Ouija.
Ouija. Not Ouija, but Ouija. There we go.
And Brandon's character introduces Tawny's character and her boyfriend to the Ouija board.
That's right. And what I love about this movie, I guess we can get into, I watched it recently, and there was a lot of stuff that I picked up on as an adult. I love the bromance. I love the...
bromance.
No.
Oh, wait, let's
Yeah, I was
give a
gonna
quick
say,
description of what the movie's
Sure.
about. So, wait, what was it? Jim, right. So Jim and Linda are throwing a party at their upscale apartment complex.
Sure.
It's
which is in
beautiful.
California, we discovered. And they invite Linda's ex-boyfriend, Brandon, who used to be childhood friends with Jim.
Layers.
And what's really funny is when the movie starts, like, she's sitting right next to Brandon with, like, her hand on his shoulder or leg or something.
Oh, yeah, I noticed
And
that.
then she switches over to Jim later in the kitchen to, like, calm him down and says, I love you. And I was like, Dan, who is she with? Like, it was so confusing. But then, of course, we find out that Brandon is her ex-boyfriend. And there's a rumor going around that he's pissed because Jim stole her from him. So there's this rift between Jim and Brandon. And so Brandon has a Ouija board
There you go.
with him at the party, and he's used it before, and he's contacted this 10-year-old spirit named David. And so he uses the Ouija board. This is my favorite part. So he tells Jim it needs to be a man and a woman of, like, clean souls. And, like, they can't be alcoholics like their parents. Like, he's so mean to Jim.
He takes digs at his parents every 5 seconds at that party.
Not far off from the tree or something like that. The apple doesn't fall from the tree.
Alcoholic parents, don't forget.
Your parents are alcoholics. Like, he's
In
just,
public.
In public. And so Jim just stands there and takes a moment and then walks on. And he's just great. So, so he brings the Ouija board and he tells Jim, it needs to be a man and a woman. It needs to be somebody clean, and you're not clean. So Linda sits with him and they have to have the Ouija board on their knees. So their knees have to be touching.
I loved that.
Because later when the two men do the Ouija board together at Big Bear, it's so funny because I was thinking like, well, aren't their knees supposed to touch? And Brandon's like,
no, we don't need to do that now.
Thinking, it was just you wanted to like
touch your knees.
Feel up your girlfriend. So opening scene, they contact David. Well, first an uninvited spirit shows up who says he's 8 years old. And that's when Brandon knows this isn't David, because David's 10.
And spirits lie.
Spirits lie, and they misspell.
And they miss their horrible spellers.
Horrible spellers.
Don't worry, it all comes back.
He was 10 years old. I can't blame him. So, all this crazy stuff keeps happening. He leaves the Ouija board there. Linda starts using it to talk to David on her own, which you're never supposed to do. You're supposed to have a room full of people or have a comrade. And so David, the spirit, tortures her and eventually puts her in a hospital. Right? Mm-hmm. And then so the two men go to Big Bear to find David's grave.
Don't worry, it's not a romantic getaway. They're just going to Big Bear.
But we wanted it to be. There were so many times we were like, can you just unbutton one more button?
Come on, you guys just kiss and make up already.
It was so homoerotic. I loved it. And so they're at Big Bear. They find the grave. And then Brandon dies after the Ouija board misspells the word here. Or the men got impatient. That's what I thought happened, is that David got pissed because the two guys were like, her? Who's her? And then he's like, no!
Here,
figure eight.
There's an E. And then they find out that it's Malfader,
yes.
who is an old man, a creepy old man who chops people up with axes, who's a spirit that haunts the apartment complex. Mm-hmm. And he shows up at the Big Bear Bros Before Hoes.
Do not call Tawny Katane a hoe. She's
Tawny
a video
Katane
vixen. She is a star.
Bachelor Party with Tom Hanks.
That's right.
Played his fiance in Bachelor Party, so that's how I know her. Of course,
Pam's favorite actor of all time.
I know her from the White Snake videos, but primarily from Witchboard. That's what I know her from. Yeah. I know her from Witchboard.
I give Witchboard for an 86 horror thriller ghost story 2 thumbs up. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's fine. Good. I mean, it doesn't necessarily break new ground.
No.
It's not extremely violent. Yeah.
It's fun and stupid and silly.
It's silly.
It's a good one to make fun of while you're... It's a great riff tracks movie.
Yeah, I think it's funny. Some of the reviews at the time I was reading, they were like, it's not campy enough to be like a B movie. And if you watch it now, there's some good camp in there, guys. There's some good... Go back and watch those costumes, I'm telling you.
Let's talk about the psychic who comes...
Sarah Beth.
And you said she does the voice of Pepper Ann, right?
I think it's her. Yeah.
She's cool for 7th grade. Pepper Ann, she's like 1 in a million. So Pepper Ann, she does the voice.
She drove me crazy, but I did like her.
Oh, you did enjoy her.
No, I loved her.
She was annoyed by her.
Yeah, her voice, I was like, close your mouth.
I get it. She is a lot. It's a dose of energy in that scene.
But her house would be protected so hard by evil
spirits. That's what I was going to say. Like, he took her down real fast.
Real quick. And in what a way.
I know. She was hit, and then 10 seconds later, she fell out the window.
And onto a sundial. Like, what a death.
That's true.
If I could be in that movie, that's what I'd want to play. I would want that.
Oh, yeah, 100%. You'd be that character. Or the landlord. I could see you as
or the landlord. But she doesn't get a fun death scene.
Yeah, she doesn't. That's true. So as this movie wraps up, eventually there's a showdown between Jim, David, and Tawny. Linda is her character name. But, twist! Linda's been possessed by not David, sorry, Malfader. I keep thinking Malfoy and Darth Vader. So I'm like, put them together. Put Harry Potter and Star Wars together. Yeah.
And when she gets possessed...
Harry Potter came out so far.
They don't know.
Em's like, we'll cut that.
I'm like giving the Pam the cut.
You still did. still physically did
Well,
it.
Pam does the editing, so if you're going to give her a high star,
No, we have to
she
keep it
will.
in now.
No, it's amazing.
I was just going to say, I love when she does get possessed because she dresses like him and it looks amazing on her.
She's in a little ball cap
She gets
and
a suit, that
Where
bowler
did that
hat.
outfit
It's
come
the
from?
funeral outfit. If you watch, she wears that hat at the funeral, and I mean the rest of the piece.
So it's
she's just
almost
pulls
like
from
she
a closet.
starts
you're
to
right.
become him earlier.
It starts early on with all the cursing and everything, which I love.
Oh, the
Every time
cursing was
she-
so
it was awkward.
fucking crying.
Cream up on me. And
I
then
love
Brandon
that.
gets pissed at him too about that.
Right. It's so good. Cursing like a sailor, he said. Like a truck driver. Like a truck driver.
Like a truck driver.
Is she cursing?
So that was a great one, and that was the movie that scared Dan horribly.
Yeah, so I
as
saw
a
this, I
child.
want to say between the ages of 8 and 10. And I
Very
remember my mother, because my friend Charles Stahl, shout out to Charles, his mom was a cool mom. She let us watch really
cool
cool
mom.
movies.
She's not a regular mom.
She's not a regular mom. She was a cool mom. And we watched Witchboard together, and I did go home, had nightmares, of course, probably ran to my mom's room and said, "Can I sleep with you?" So she did call Charles's mother.
She said,
and
"Daniel, you're
did
in fifth
say-
grade. Go to bed."
Go to bed. There's water all over this room. She said...
The signs.
Yeah.
Sorry, keep going. Keep going.
But my mom called his mom and said, "That's not allowed anymore. No more scary movies." So funny that I was
it
that
really
affected by it.
traumatized you.
Oh god, yeah. So, but it didn't stop me. I still went to Charles's house and we still kept watching horror movies.
That's a perfect segue into the horror movie that scared me as a child, because I saw it at about 8 or 9 years old, and I was traumatized, and that was The Lady in White.
Ooh, yeah.
So The Lady in White stars Len Cariou, who was the original Sweeney Todd on Broadway, but you don't really know it stars him right away. You kind of find that out
Sneaks
later.
up on you.
So the movie starts at almost like a freaking 80s Disney Channel Hallmark movie. You're like, is it going to
Halloween
get scary?
Town, yeah.
Everyone was very restless in this room when we were watching it all together.
Well, because I thought it was going to be like a Disney movie, and I was like, well, I thought you misunderstood the assignment of it being scary.
Well, and did I disappoint?
No, you did not.
I didn't.
No, you did not.
The first scary scene that happens is the boy played by Lucas Haas, who's Haas, who's an incredible child actor. I thought he was great
Yeah,
in this.
he's
Yeah,
great.
I mean, he's no Elliot from E.T., but still, he held his own. Or Elijah Wood as a child. Elijah Wood as a child was the best actor. He sets the bar for me. If no one's better than Elijah Wood in
As a child,
Forever Young or Good Son, you're not a child actor. You don't deserve to be on the screen. So anyway, Lucas Haas did great. Not as good as Elijah, but great. And so a couple bullies throw his hat in a coat closet at school, and he goes to get it at night, and they lock him in there. And in the middle of the night, a little ghost girl comes and visits him in the closet, but not really acknowledging him. I guess she does for like a second. But what happens to this girl is every night she repeats her murder, this ghost. So like the clock on the town clock chimes, and wherever she is, she's got to go repeat her murder. And you never see the ghost of the killer. She gets carried in, midair by him, and he throws her off a cliff. So everyone in town talks about this lady in white who went a little crazy, and she was the sister of the woman who lost her daughter. So the little ghost girl's got a mom and an aunt, and the aunt is the lady in white who's still alive and playing piano. But the mom of the little girl was so upset that her daughter was thrown over a cliff that she decided to jump after her on a cliff. So mother, daughter dead, aunt alive, playing piano, scaring kids in town. Everyone's afraid of the lady in white. And
Mona from...
Well, yeah, so
is that
Katherine
the-
Hellman plays the aunt, the lady in white.
Fabulous. She's fabulous.
And I don't know if she's considered the lady in white or if the mom is considered, but I feel like it's Katherine Hellman. It's a little unclear.
Yeah, it's all.
So anyway, it's revealed at the end of the movie that Len Cariou, who is a trusted family friend, I mean, they consider him an uncle to this kid, is the man who was killing all these kids, molesting them and killing them.
I was going to say, was he was touching the kids?
They said child molestation.
This was rough.
So what makes Lady in White for me as a child so scary was a lot of the imagery. You know, they've got this super weird fucking close-up shot of Katherine Hellman's
and slowly. It was scary. It wasn't boom in your face. It was very
subtle. The things
subtle.
in the room moving because the little girl's singing, "Did you ever hear a dream walking?" See it walking. Yeah, it is. I guess you could hear the footsteps of the dream. That's so true. It works both ways. And my sister, who's 5 years older than me and who watched this movie with me or probably forced me to watch it.
Sounds about right.
She would, when I would like go to the bathroom or something and no one was around, you could hear her faintly singing the song from around the corner just to terrorize me. It was awful. But as an adult, what I realized watching Lady in White was how much race played such a huge part of the film, which obviously I did not get as a child, but as an adult I couldn't believe it. You know, the wrongful conviction of the
was so bad.
Janitor of the black janitor, and then him getting out and then getting shot by the white bitch.
I know, that was
I love that scene.
Yeah, that was Dan too.
Scared me. Like, that was the most uncomfortable scene out of the whole film.
Yeah.
Was the fact that she was so nice creeping into the car and she was hidden under her jacket.
I just want to say I'm sorry for everything you've been put through, but die! Yeah. Like, she kills him.
Horror. Oh,
it was
my God.
so scary. And just like, it shows you that the ghosts aren't the ones to be scared of. It's the human beings in this movie, for sure.
Yeah,
Len Carey, number one, and then that lady with the gun, number two. Or maybe her kind of, well, both of them
They're tied. They're really good. We don't need to rank them.
No, we don't. Both crimes are really horrible.
Whether you're a child
molester and killer, or you're a racist murderer.
But yeah, starts out like a Disney movie and delivers a child rapist. So well done, Pam.
I'm bringing it in. Bringing it in for group love.
You delivered.
It was, it was so weird. And I wonder if you felt this watching Witchboard, but some of these scenes, I'd forgotten so much of it, but then the ones that stay with you are like exactly the same.
Yeah,
and it's like the inner child that was terrified back then is terrified now.
Yeah, like when we were watching Witchboard, I was saying the scenes that really stuck with me were when she gets decapitated. Like that I can see very clearly. And also when Zarabeth dies and she falls on the sundial. I remember that vividly too. Like those scenes, they hold up. Yeah. They're tense and they are pretty violent. They're not super duper gory, man. Not a whole lot of blood, but I think it's effective.
And this was 1988. This movie is 2 years after Witchboard was Lady in White.
Yeah, man. And Lady in White, I was just impressed with how dark it was. I was not expecting it to get that dark.
It was a little long. I could have lost a half an hour.
Yeah, I could have shaved that off. But
I want to remake it so badly. I wish I had the skill and the clout to remake Lady in White.
Who do we talk to? Someone's got to be listening, right?
So, Em, tell us what movie scared you.
Okay, so it's actually the first scary movie I've ever seen.
Oh.
In my life, I was 11 years old in 5th grade, and we had our favorite 5th grade teacher was invited all the girls over to have like a fun sleepover as like her last goodbye everyone for the summer. It was really sweet. And we decided as a group to watch The Birds by Alfred Hitchcock.
Wow.
1963. And I had no idea what it was. I was like, ooh, The Birds.
Birds, I love birds.
That sounds delightful.
Tweety.
So before we played this movie, we got to decide in the living room where we would all sleep. And I can't remember how I got, but the best spot in the living room was by the windows. And I was like, I don't know how this happened, but I was the one that got picked to sleep by the windows. I see where
this is going.
And I had my cute sleeping bag, and I was all ready, and I was like, guys, I have the best spot. I was so excited. And then we watched The Birds, which was absolutely terrifying. I had no idea that it was so scary. And I mean, I was awake the entire night. My face was pressed against the glass of the thing. I couldn't sleep. I tried to switch with somebody. No one would let me move. It was just like, I didn't sleep at all. So and I was alone, awake, and like I saw the sunrise. It was horrible.
I really thought you were going to wake up and outside the window was going to be a lot of birds.
I thought. There was a bird feeder, I remember, and I was like, please, dear God, like, do not let a bird come to that food. Because I remember it was like swaying in the wind, but it was horrible. The Birds scared me the most.
Let's talk about what that movie is about.
I mean, I haven't seen it since that evening.
Tippi Hedren.
Yes.
Yeah,
I know it was, they meet in a pet shop, and she buys like these 2 lovebirds or whatever, and then she follows him home, and then all of a sudden all these birds start wreaking havoc on this town and like attacking people.
Now this reminds me of a time when I left my apartment in Glendale, and I was wearing Aussie hairspray, which I love, but non-spawn. They're not sponsoring us. And I walked out of the house, and all of a sudden I heard a like by my ear.
Ew.
And I was like, what the fuck? And then I looked around and heard another by my other ear. And it was fucking birds. They wanted my fucking hair to be their next nest. I don't know. Man. But ever since
You're blaming Aussie? Blaming Aussie? They're not our sponsor, and we're dragging them, by the way.
No, I love their hairspray. And so do birds. But it was horrifying. And since then, I've literally had a fear of birds. Like, I can't do it. So my friend Kenny, who had an apartment, he was staying with a friend for a while. They found a bird, like, in nature, and it was injured, and they brought it back to the apartment to, like, nurse it, and it would fucking fly around the apartment, and I'd come over, and it was in my nightmare, because I was so afraid of that experience I had.
Just kept going for the hair.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of birds.
They shouldn't have a bird in their apartment. I don't know why they thought they could.
Well, there's a lot of disease.
Be a habitat for that bird.
Yeah. They wanted to help.
Don't we all? But
don't we all?
But disease-ridden creatures.
I love the birds. Was there a scene that stuck with you that kind of freaked you out? That
Absolutely.
Or the jungle gym?
No, she was.
Because I know my scene.
Oh, this is the worst scene in the whole film. She's walking up to the attic.
Oh, yeah.
She opens the attic door, and all these birds start rushing her and attacking her, and she closes the door behind her in a panic, and they start eating her. They peck at her face, her clothes, her body, everything, to the point where she just is, like, giving up and sliding to the ground. And I was like, fuck this. I am done.
Yeah.
11-year-old me.
And now a lot of us know that Tippi Hedren was actually tortured throughout that scene with actual birds.
They actually threw...
Alfred Hitchcock was not a very nice man. That's a different podcast. We will talk about it.
Yeah, they would actually throw seagulls at her.
Yeah.
Like, actual seagulls. They would throw at her face.
That were alive?
Yeah. And, like, she had to get,
the crew was so sorry. They were like, we're
and...
so sorry we have to bring you to set. We're very sorry. Because they knew that what was going to be happening to her.
Oh, my God.
Awful.
Jesus.
But,
Nightmare real life.
But that movie is just so creepy. For me, it's the scene with the guy, with the man's eyes are pecked out.
Oh, yeah.
That
and then he turns to the...
It's just stunning.
Kind of reminds us of our namesake film, I Spit on Your Podcast, where the guy's eyes get pecked out by birds because he throws chum on the eyes.
You
love
eyes.
Oh my God, that's right.
No, I love... Well, we'll have a whole episode about...
On just birds?
That's this episode. I've already brought up my story. Yeah, birds. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would say that and Psycho are probably his 2 most famous movies. And then
there's Vertigo.
Vertigo's
Everyone's
famous,
got their favorite.
There's your favorites, but then I think his most popular or most famous movies are those 2.
If you talk to cinematographers, people love to talk about Vertigo as like their
Vertigo's
number
brilliant,
one.
But I think as a child, like I only heard about those 2 movies for a while, and I think that Vertigo is probably better in many ways.
It's fabulous, but for me, it's not visceral. I love Psycho. I love The Birds. Rope, I'm obsessed with. We could do a whole Alfred Hitchcock.
We will.
But also, just good to know, you are aware that Tippi Hedren is of the line of not what do I want to say, Melanie Griffith. And so that leads us down to Dakota Johnson. Is that right?
Oh, they're
is that
all
how
related?
that line? That's the
what?
famous bloodline.
Tippi Hedren is the
Hollywood
grandmother
royalty.
of Melanie.
Yeah.
You
Griffith.
are kidding me.
So I love that too. That lineage I think is beautiful too. I love all of them separately as actresses. I appreciate them all.
So I've got a fun...
Suspiria with Dakota.
Right? That's when she got me, because I haven't seen 50 Shades, but when I saw her in Suspiria...
She was flawless.
Flawless.
Yeah.
So I have some fun facts, because remember we did that in the first episode, but we didn't do it in the second episode. So I thought I'd bring it back for the third episode.
Yes.
I have my top 10 favorite actors, which I cultivated a list some time ago. And I realized today that 4 of my 10 started in horror.
Oh.
I know. So I'm going to list 10 actors that are on my top 10 favorite actor list, and you guys tell me who you think starred in horror.
A horror movie.
Okay.
First, okay? So the first one, just say yes or no.
Okay.
The first one is Tom Hanks.
No.
Yes.
Yes. What's the name of the movie?
He Knows You're Alone?
He Knows You're Alone.
Weird.
I
Tom
like this
Hanks
game.
was in He Knows You're Alone in 1980, and it's a movie about a guy who goes around killing brides before their weddings. Well, that's like his main goal, but then he like kills a couple other people who like get in the way or like are her friends.
And these dresses are covered in doilies.
There's so many doilies in that movie.
So many.
What year was that?
1980. And Hanks is in it for like 20 minutes. He doesn't die, and he's not the killer, but he's just like a fun guy who like knows. He's like the Randy in that movie. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, he's nice, sweet.
Okay.
And is he on a roller coaster? Did I make that up?
There's a whole
roller coaster thing, right?
scene where they're in line to get on a ride at a fair, and he's like talking about everything he knows about this and that, like just like Randy.
Just being
he's
Tom
adorable
Hanks.
in
He
it,
is, yeah,
and
yeah.
it was the first thing he ever did, and he's great. The movie is not. The movie is not. Another one I'd like to remake. Okay, next actor, Catherine O'Hara. Yes or no?
Yes.
No.
No is correct. Two for Dan. Two for Dan. Okay, next actor.
I'm killing this.
Next actor. Okay. Meryl Streep.
No.
I'm going to say no.
No is right.
Yeah.
Em finally got it right. Okay, next one. Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh.
Yes.
No.
Em gets the point.
What was the movie?
Leonardo DiCaprio was in, do you know?
No, I
Critters 3.
Oh, yeah, he
Critters
was.
3.
Is that before Growing Pains, though?
It was it before? Yes.
Oh my God,
well, I
that's
don't
right,
count
Growing
TV.
Pains.
This is like film.
Oh, okay.
Well, had I
only.
known the rules.
No,
no, it's
So
true.
2
It's
for
not making
2.
excuses.
2 for 2.
No,
two.
No,
you
you're
deserve it,
definitely
baby.
versus 2.
That's yours.
Okay, next one. So we've got 2 so far that have done horror, DiCaprio and Hanks.
Okay.
So there's only 2 more on this list.
All right,
Don't
you're going
buck
down.
it up.
You're going down.
Okay, next one is Gary Oldman.
Oh.
Yes.
I'm going to say yes.
No.
But I was going to say,
was
but
so
I can't think of
confident.
anything.
I let you
Brits.
wrong.
It's hard with the Brits.
Yeah.
You can't tell. Okay, next one. Next one. Christopher Guest.
Wait, what?
Christopher Guest was the 6-fingered man in Princess Bride. He was in.
Shut up.
He
Shut
was
up.
also the
Waiting
husband
for
of Jamie Lee
Guffman,
Curtis.
and he's married to Jamie Lee Curtis.
Wait.
Scream Queen.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm going to say
I'm going to say no.
no.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What is it?
So the first movie he made ever was in 1971, and it was called The Hospital, and he's uncredited.
Stop
Em
it.
just spit so much.
She just spat on our
Was it
podcast.
tea or water?
I like missed my mouth when I drank the tea and it like went all the way down my
Classic Em. She's like, hospital?
Don't edit that out.
So what is it? The hospital?
The Hospital. So this is the plot to The Hospital.
Give it.
Give it.
Give it. I
An
want it.
overburdened doctor struggles to find meaning in his life while a murderer stalks the halls of the hospital.
Sounds like Grey's
great.
Anatomy.
Now he does not. Every episode. of
Every
Grey's
episode
Anatomy.
is great.
Grey's Anatomy episode.
So he is not the murderer, nor is he a patient. I'm not sure actually. He's
So who is
uncredited in it. But
So is he in it?
yeah,
He got his big
uncredited.
break on
It's the first movie he ever made. Ever.
Okay, that's cool.
Okay,
I
ready?
want to
There's
check it
more.
out.
There's
Oh,
more.
there's
Is
more.
there one more that's in a horror movie?
Yes.
Okay, so this
Next
is it.
one.
Got
This is
it.
for all the cheese.
Okay.
There's 4 more, and only one of them has been in a horror movie.
Okay.
Kate Blanchett.
Nah.
No.
That's correct.
Yes.
Oh,
The Brits again.
the
three.
Brits.
It's
The
so
Brits.
tricky.
Okay.
Will Smith.
No.
What? No.
No.
Yeah, I was gonna say
no.
what? I was about to say what shit are you about to pull? Independence Day. Shut up. Sit down and shut up.
Aliens threats were scary.
No.
Next one, Natalie Portman.
I want to say yeah.
I do too. I want to sit.
But I'm thinking of it.
But like no. Was Leon the Professional her first thing? I can't look at you. You're not gonna tell me. I want to say.
I want to know the last name on the list.
You gonna phone a friend?
Can we know the
You
actor?
can phone me.
Can we know the actress or actor that's left?
No.
We can't skip. All right. So then I'm gonna say no.
No.
That's correct.
Oh, right.
So Will Smith.
We're not on the same team, but it's good. We're very supportive.
Very
We
against
high
each
fived.
other.
We're very supportive.
So shout out to Will Smith and Natalie Portman, whose first movies were like crime thrillers, which, there's horror involved in a way, but not the genre itself. Leon the Professional was her very first movie.
Loves it.
So good.
Loves it.
And the last actor who we know started in a horror movie, you guys know who it is.
Wait, can we have a
Who
hint?
haven't I said yet? Who I'm obsessed with.
Wait, I have to figure
Sam
this out.
Rockwell?
Oh, Sam fucking
Sam
Rockwell.
Rockwell.
So I get bonus points because I got that too.
Oh, come on.
The winner of this game is Dan.
Woo!
Well deserved.
So
Winner,
Sam
chicken
Rockwell
dinner.
was in a movie called Clown House, and the
Ew.
Also known as my dating life. Like, can we be real, ladies? Can we be real?
or your current living situation.
I love you, Rumi.
I love you, Rubies.
I'm sorry.
So Clown House plot, listen to this, it's so great. It was made in 1989, and the plot is just before Halloween, 3 young brothers alone in a big house are menaced by 3 escaped mental patients who have murdered some traveling circus clowns and taken their identity.
Ew.
That's a hat on a hat on a hat. I'm ready.
Sam Rockwell's
That's amazing.
first
Is he one of
movie.
the? Is he one of the
I
brothers?
have no idea, but we have to watch
How
it.
old is
there's a
he in it?
killer
I
for
want to
each
see.
brother.
Is he like is it going to be like a little slice of
Just
teen
probably
cute?
adorable.
Yeah, I bet he's like
Adorable.
a teen beat.
God, I love him so much.
Leslie Bibb, I love you.
Why are you bringing her up?
It's
We don't need to talk about her.
I love her.
They're not married, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Are they?
I still have a
Is it a
chance.
Goldie Hawn?
I love you, Connor.
I thought you were going to say Sam Rockwell at first.
So wait, are they Kurt Rustling it? Goldie
Kurt
Hawn? I
Rustling
love
it,
that
yeah.
on them. Okay.
People say
That's cool.
that they might get married one day. I don't know, but I don't want to see it happen.
Stop that.
I love him so much.
Badu 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 badu. True terror.
Okay, so on this episode's True Terror, another movie that scared me as a kid was Poltergeist. So I was trying to find out certain movies that scared me as a kid that were based off of true events. So this story is about James Herman and his family. On the afternoon James Herman returned home from work on February 4th, 1958, he had to have thought his family had lost their minds. That or they were telling him a fanciful tale to scare him. According to Herman's wife, Lucille, she and their teenage children, Jimmy and Lucy, were enjoying some time together after the children arrived home from school. They started to hear popping noises coming from various places around their Seaford home.
Pop, pop, pop.
Thank you. Upon investigating, they discovered uncapped bottles of several common substances began popping open in several different rooms. The most troubling was a bottle of holy water spilling all over the bedroom dresser.
Drizzle, drizzle, drizzle.
That's good.
Herman advised his family to stay calm and not to tell anyone. Smart. 5 days later, the family was preparing to enjoy a meal when the popping sounds were heard again.
Pop, pop, pop.
This time, Herman investigated himself and found a mess in several rooms. Bottles were again opened and appended. He called the police, and the dispatched officer reported that he had also heard the noises and witnessed even more capless bottles and dumped contents, but noticed nothing could have easily explained the mystery. Later investigations by other officers determined that the family had not been involved in the hijinks and the house was not in any way deteriorating. So when the story became public and incidents were filmed and televised, advice poured in from all around the world, but eerie events that were happening in the Herman home started to escalate. A Catholic priest was soon invited inside to bless the house. Some, including Herman himself, blamed the popper on teenage shenanigans. But when a cousin of Herman's visited, she witnessed bolder occurrences while the teens sat on opposite sides of the room. Ultimately convinced it was not the fault of anyone in the family or anyone in the community, they moved out of their house temporarily. Soon after they returned, the noises and damage resumed with a vengeance. At that point, larger and heavier items were being upset. So was the family. Finally, after a month of terror, the Herman family was approached by Dr. J.B. Ryan, director of Duke University's Parapsychology Laboratory. Ryan believed that the presence of 2 hormonal teenagers could have opened some sort of chance for psychokinesis, or perhaps a poltergeist activity. Though there were reportedly some dissent between the scientists and Herman, Ryan colleagues began to attempt to prove that common bottles of household liquids with screw-closed tops don't just spontaneously pop their caps open. Alas, shortly after the scientists arrived to the house, the mysterious popping noises ceased. All in all, between February 3rd and March 10, nearly 70 mysterious events recorded and witnessed by the Hermans and others.
That's cool.
That's terrifying.
Kind of reminds me of The Conjuring a little bit.
I was going to say, do you know if that was the basis for one of those movies?
It was definitely for Poltergeist, that's for sure.
That was what they had, Tobe Hooper and
that
Spielberg
they
were
took
looking
that whole
at.
thing. Yeah,
Wow,
exactly.
That's cool.
Very cool. Thank you so much for joining us for Season 3, Episode 3 of I Spit on Your Podcast.
Yay.
You can reach us on Twitter at SpitOnYourPcast. And we post questions, but don't wait for us.
Yeah, we also do mini episodes, so please submit questions to the Twitter as well. We'll answer those. We love those questions, so keep them coming.
So as always, stay tuned for our original song, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Bye. Close to your chest, close your eyes, wish for the best.
Boards of Ouija or a killer of kids, it's enough to make you flip your lids.
Bedtime, so much fun for the little ones. Monsters under bed, ghosts chop off your head. Closets closed real tight.
Time to say goodnight.
Prayers you've said enough.